originally Zionists, Holocaust survivors who were Zionists who very quickly recognized that it was built on top of a lie. A land without people for a people without land is a lie. That is so crazy. It's not necessarily that I'm surprised by it. I mean, if you are a student of American history, you've already seen this happen time and time again, and maybe even worse things, right? Than just simply saying you cannot continue speaking your mind. You cannot continue saying the truth. I think that there are far worse consequences for people than that in American history, in terms of their opinion, in terms of what they've been brave enough to say. And by that, I mean like literal death, right? Arrests and murders, assassinations, and the like. It's just that it's still frustrating, you know? It's also partially frustrating because not only is this the truth, but also a lot of people understand it. A lot more people than you think. I know that I often talk about like the New York Times or Washington Post or Los Angeles Times. Like, I know reporters at these outlets. Okay, I know them personally. I know them well. Some of them are in here. Okay, parts of this community. Some of them tune in for the coverage. And I talk to them. I talk to producers at CNN. I talk to producers at other outlets, MSNBC, commentators. And there are far more people than you think that know the truth. There are far more people, especially on the lower levels, especially on the ground level, especially on the reporting side of things, that are very aware of what's going on. And they understand, they recognize right from wrong. And I think that's why there is a lot of leeway given, and that a lot of the, oh, you're criticizing Israel, I'm going to portray you as an anti-Semite narratives are now relegated to the likes of the New York Post, which is a right-wing dish rag, right? And the most ardent defenders of Israel are the likes of Michael Rappaport, you know, disgraced figures in general that most people kind of look at and go, ugh, okay, dude, calm down. The likes of Richie Torres. Like, the ADL has also lost its sauce in many ways. I think that there are far more people. I think that there are far more people out there that know right from wrong, and you kind of see it every now and then. I can't speak for the UK, but the only thing you can do is keep pushing, you know, keep protesting, keep making noise, keep disrupting. There's nothing else that you can do in spite of all of the attacks, and hope that one day history will vindicate you, and hope that one day many Americans, the rest of society, will be open-minded enough to recognize right from wrong in the same way. It's so funny how the ADL never goes against Republicans. Yes, because Republicans are unconditionally pro-Israel. Why the fuck would the ADL go after people that are on their side? Their ultimate goal is to defend Israel. That is why I call them the Apartheid Defense League. How do you argue with the people who invoke the original idea of Zionism and ignore what it devolved into? I mean, you can point to many famous examples of people who are, originally Zionists, Holocaust survivors who were Zionists who very quickly recognized that it was built on top of a lie. A land without people for a people without land is a lie. Okay? A land without people had people in it. Israel forcibly expelled 750,000 Palestinians in the Nakba and never allowed them to return ever again. So clearly, there were people there. Albert Einstein is another example of a famous Zionist, so much so that they want him to be the first president of Israel. He warned about Zionism being and behaving in exactly the same ways as fascist and Nazi Germany behaved. That kind of sentiment, when I express it, is immediately clocked by Israel defenders as anti-Semitic, the most anti-Semitic thing anyone has ever said. Fucking Albert Einstein said it. Noam Chomsky is another prominent example of someone who went and saw the kibbutzim. He lived there and then spent the rest of his life saying, yeah, this is unacceptable. This is fascism. This is fascist. In Toronto, the police did early morning raids on Palestinian protesters and made arrests, confiscating laptops and cell phones. It's crazy. All of the behest of Zion is a retail chain owner. She has a charity helping foreigners serve in the IOF. Oh, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. You can understand how the Holocaust galvanized public opinion in favor of Zionism while still rejecting it as an ethno-nationalist ideology. Yeah, no, I that's why I'm giving you prominent examples of early Zionists that thought, oh, what a wonderful idea. Jewish people have a long history of being forcibly expelled from villages and countries, towns that they lived in. The Holocaust being, the largest event of expulsion and death and destruction. So that's what's so dangerous about Zionism being an inherently fascist ideology, is that it's built atop real hurt and real harm that Jewish people have historically faced. It is precisely because of that there is validity to real existing anti-Semitism fears. As a Jew raised in America, growing up, I was taught that Zionist was a racial slur. Now I know better, but I think that's part of the reason people refuse to even listen to you. I think plenty of people listen to me. Plenty more people, at least, now than ever before. But I think that scares a lot of people. A lot of people who still think that I'm using Zionist as a substitute for Jew to be secretly anti-Semitic, while in the process of regularly and routinely speaking out against real anti-Semitism. Sure, but if it can all be summed up as colonial imperialism, then what side are you on? The side of almost every powerful country on the planet, or the side that would be willing to do anything to disrupt modern civilized society under the pretext that is inherently bad and should be disassembled? Yeah, this is the issue here. That's what happened in a lot of cases. What about pretty much every other instance where it's happened? Just living in America supports the very concept you seem to be against. Fantastic argument, my friend. There has never been a moment where I have not recognized the indigenous genocide that occurred for the United States to exist in its current form, nor have I ever denied the atrocities committed in the form of chattel slavery. As a matter of fact, a big part of what I do is try to explain these concepts to Americans who refuse to understand it. The problem is, you're looking at historic wrongs. You're arguing with a guy who, advocates for these historically wronged people, while in the process of defending the ongoing wrong that resembles the historic wrong, saying might is right. And not only that, but then you're packaging it with like colonial supremacist ideals, such as the other side is willing to do anything to disrupt modern civilized society under the pretext that it's inherently bad and should be disassembled. All you've done in this circumstance is engage in whataboutism and then followed it up with like some inherently racialized, infantilizing, savage barbarian tropes. Palestinians are, as a whole, incredibly well read. Like, they have a higher literacy rate than I believe even Israeli society, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's your assumption that they are barbaric in spite of the circumstances that they are subjected to. Like, why is it that you decided that? Why is it that you chose to believe this thing, that they are just bad? Perhaps this requires some self-examination. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything specific about you. Rather, I'm just wondering, what exactly do you think the solution to this complex modern dilemma is, other than inciting violence? What do you mean? I'm against that. I'm against further violence. I want the violence to end. It's not actually a complex modern dilemma at all. One side is a nuclear militarized state and is actually pummeling defenseless people with incredible frequency every single day. And they only get to do that because my state that I currently live in allows Israel to do so. It gives Israel the weapons to do so. It offers Israel the political cover to be able to do so. Because America is the global superpower. It is the hegemonic power that dominates the entire planet. So whatever we say goes. This also comes with the recognition, by the way, that there have been historic wrongs that were committed. So if you read it in history books and you recognize right from wrong then, why can't you apply it to a modern standard? We're at 50,000 dead civilians past needing to say I'm not anti-Semitic when we shit on Zionism. It's ridiculous at this point. It doesn't matter. I'm in the United States of America. There are plenty of people who will falsely smear me as an anti-Semite. I'm not going to discard that. I'm going to every single time talk about real existing anti-Semitism and what it looks like and combat it. It is very much a part of what I believe in general, regardless of what cynical smears I get fucking attacked with, because it is something that I think is important to address. And it's precisely the reason why I have for years continuously addressed it. As Dr. Ofer Kasif, Israeli Knesset member, once told me in our early October conversation in 2023, anti-Semitism is a crime, anti-Zionism is a duty. My whole point is that there are some people who refuse to listen and think you're saying racial slurs just by talking about the problem. Yeah, I know. So what? I advocated for Black Lives Matter and the disproportionate targeting of black people in the hands of the American police for many years before it was fashionable to do so. I advocated for it when Barack Obama was antagonistic towards Black Lives Matter. That didn't stop me from advocating for it regardless. Many Americans looked at that and said, this is black terrorism. You're anti-white. It never stopped me. So people immediately discounting what I have to say because of my background or because of fears that they have that are completely ridiculous in terms of me being secretly an anti-Semite is not going to stop me from advocating for the emancipation of Palestinian people, for all people. We are facing down the barrel of a dual fascist leadership. You have already a fascist leadership in Israel, and that is playing itself out in incredibly violent ways. America has a lot of resilient, underlying, unexamined fascism as well, and it's slated to get a lot worse with Donald Trump. I don't disagree, and I hate Bibi, but it's so hard to look at Holocaust survivors and tell them that the only Jewish country shouldn't exist. How Israel exists matters. Okay? This is precisely the point. How it exists. And it cannot exist as an apartheid. This is where we arrive at the problem. Israel's demographic concerns are inherently fascist. It is an ethno-state. Like when a country says we have demographic concerns, that's genuinely scary shit. It's kind of like if Americans were openly being like, we have demographic concerns. Oh, wait, they do say that. It's called white supremacy, and we understand it as such. We understand it as a genuinely dangerous idea, right? Do you see what I mean? It's not about you secretly being an anti-Semite. People think that being anti-Zionist is intrinsically anti-Semitic, though. No, I know people think that. They're wrong. I think a lot of the justifications and defenses of Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic. What are your incentives? What do you mean? What are my incentives? Ebola virus? I don't know what you're talking about. And by the way, you can tell your grandparents that they're wrong. Chatter. I tell my grandparents they're wrong all the time if they have wrong opinions. This guy, I'm like, what do you mean? What are my incentives? And he just repeats, what are your incentives? You say that a lot. Could you explain how Zionism is anti-Semitic? Just curious. Of course. Something that I repeat all the time. Zionism and the way that it exists is a maintenance of an ethnic superiority and an ethnic majority in a land where there are more Palestinians who are not Jewish than there are Jewish people. In order to keep that going, you have to maintain an apartheid. You have to maintain a permanent occupation over an indigenous population. The notion that this concept represents the interests of all Jews and that all Jews are monolithic in their understanding of Israel and in their defense of Israel is the exact same thing that Nazis say about Jews. Zionists in defense of Israel and anti-Semitic Nazis who hate Israel say the exact same thing. They play into the dual loyalty tropes. Wait, I missed there's more Palestinians than Jews there? Yes. This is the reason why there is a permanent military occupation. Saying Judaism and Zionism are inherently linked undermines my identity. I come from a long line of secular, non-Zionist Jews, and I find it incredibly offensive to be ignored or othered because of that. That's how it's anti-Semitic. Well, that too. I realize this is something you just have to do, but it's genuinely upsetting how every conversation about Palestinian emancipation gets hijacked and becomes about condemning anti-Semitism. It's okay. I will always do that. I live in the Western world, okay? There are many people who don't even broach the subject matter. You know? They don't even look at it. So it's understandable that people will have these hang-ups. I make an argument to the audience that I know is listening. Always. I try to tailor my message specifically to the audience that's listening. I'm in the Western world. There's plenty of people who have been taught this wrong lesson and are subject to social conditioning. My job is to try and shake them out of this stupor. God damn, dude. Holy shit.